with the open meeting law. I do not have the agenda, which might be because it's in my email somewhere. So Matt, I'll pass it on to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Jen, for calling us to order. Appreciate that. I think, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, the main item in the agenda was the approval of the meeting minutes from last meeting, and then sort of handing it over to you to talk about the CIP and I suppose some of the proposed uh, key points from it. Does that sound right, Brian? And
Exactly.
I think you're frozen again.
Oh no. Yes, that's
Hannah,
exactly right,
does
Matt.
that sound right?
It
Okay.
does, yes. Yeah, so and some of you have heard the CIP presentation from the T, and Brian's going to try to bring it down to basically things that may or may not apply for this committee and also our role as an advisory board. Brian, you might have to turn off your screen, like you're cutting in and out, just as an FYI.
Oh, no. Hopefully that helps. Apologies.
What a mispressure.
Thank you, Leonard. That's from MMA. MMA free headshot booth. Let me tell you.
Not bad.
Get one every year if you can.
Looks like Secretary of Transportation returning to me, but I'm just saying.
Len, you're killing me. You're killing me.
All right. Can we get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the March 10th, 2026 committee meeting?
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, please, in some way, shape, or form, raise your hand, thumbs
Aye.
up, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
right, anyone abstain? Any noes? All right, the ayes have it. The meeting minutes are approved. All right, and Dr. Kane, future Secretary Kane, I'll turn it over to you.
Len, this is how rumors start, and people get in trouble. Thank you, Len. I appreciate you. Talking about the CIP. So, folks might be aware, as Hannah said, some of you might have heard this. Apologies, I'm going to keep my video off, but I will share. I'll share what we did last year, and I'll talk about what the T is proposing this year. So, just for context, folks might remember the advisory board has a statutory requirement to comment on the MBTA's capital investment plan. The capital investment plan is a 5-year horizon document. The report you're seeing on your screen is this board's oversight report of the last CIP, which was 2026 to 2030. The current CIP is 2027 to 2031. I will, show that in a second.
Brian, we're losing you a little bit, so.
No, really? So weird.
Yeah.
So it's like every other word, give or take.
Oh no, really? Okay. All right, let me try to make this even easier then. So I closed the window and I'm off my screen. So hopefully my internet connection is unstable. I don't know. Maybe my kid's watching a movie upstairs or something. I'll try, and if I cut out, let me know, and I'll start typing very fast.
Ryan, would you be able to maybe call into the meeting? Do you have a phone?
Yeah.
It seems better now. It seems like once you turn the your video off, it got better.
All right. Well, let me try this, Matt, and if that doesn't work, I'll call in.
Great.
The CIP is about $10 billion over 5 years. With respect to the areas that this committee sort of focuses on, rapid transit, which is light rail and heavy rail, is programmed for $3.9 billion new dollars, and buses programmed for $1.2 billion new dollars. I say new dollars every year because it's a 5-year document. Certain projects that are completed roll off and new ones roll on. So the 3.9 billion is new projects that are being proposed in the CIP, and the same with the 1.2. With respect to light rail and heavy rail, quick review suggests that the Green Line is doing very well in this CIP, particularly projects focused in the city of Boston. The biggest single rapid transit new project is about $280 million to fix the Green Line E branch. The E branch, as folks might know, runs from Prudential. It comes above ground at Northeastern and then runs to Heath Street. After Brigham Circle, it runs in mixed traffic. So there are plans to make all stops accessible, especially along the street running segment, which I personally look forward to greatly. I used to take that branch a lot when I was at Northeastern, so fixing that up, speeding that up, and making it accessible will be great for folks. The next biggest project that is purely a rapid transit project is the Symphony Station, continued accessibility improvements at Symphony Station, also on the E branch. And then also within the Green Line, the Type 10 Green Line procurement has almost $600 million programmed to continue to procure the new Type 10 supercars. So vehicles are also, I mean, you can slice and dice the CIP a bunch of different ways. When looking at it sort of per type of investment as opposed to per mode, vehicles are certainly by far the biggest new area of investment. So Green Line Type 10s are about 600 million, and the new red and orange line vehicle procurement continues with an additional $600 million to sort of get that over the proverbial finish line. So rail vehicles are doing very well in this CIP, as are light rail programs in general, specifically on the Green Line. Although there is $100 million in new funding for the Mattapan High Speed Line, which runs through Dorchester, Milton, and Mattapan, or to Mattapan. That has $100 million in new revenue, new spending. The Green Line B branch also has significant accessibility improvement funding, as does the continued investment in Green Line train protection. So I guess the theme for sort of rapid transit rail in this CIP is significant investments in light rail and continued investments in new red and orange line cars. There's also a series of smaller projects designed to do things system-wide, like continued investments in power, continued investments in track, continued investments in signals. These are some of the things that this organization has advocated for many years, and so we're happy to see that. There are also two sort of major multimodal stations that are proposed for significant investments. Ruggles Station, which is both bus, Orange Line, and commuter rail, has $106 million in new funding programs for upgrades, as does Quincy Center Station, which has $93 million in new money programmed for upgrades. So I do think they're trying to spread the dollars out across the system. There is a significant need on the Green Line to bring it sort of up to snuff following improvements to red and orange. I do sometimes worry that they might forget about the blue line, so we'll probably remind them of needs to improve the blue line. With respect to bus, the big headline for bus is investments in battery electric buses and the ability to move the bus fleet towards low or no emissions vehicles. You might have heard in the news that investments in the Arbor Way facility are included in this CIP. $380 million is programmed to begin the process to retrofit Arbor Way to host battery electric and other electric buses. The plan, if things are going the same way as they are going in Quincy, is to build a very large facility that can host all the vehicles inside for the first time. Right now, lots of vehicles live outside. when they're not getting actively worked on. The plan going forward is to be able to host all the vehicles inside. So that's going to be big. And that will allow these vehicles hopefully to last a little bit longer, not being exposed to the New England winters, and also be able to charge overnight and sort of extend their useful lives, if you will. Keeping on the bus theme, there's $147 million to continue the work to procure up to 460 40-foot battery electric buses that will be operated out of Quincy and Arbor Way when it is completed. There's also $112 million to continue the efforts at Quincy and $113 million for the continued procurement of hybrid diesel electric buses, which the T will be required to continue to procure in order to keep making its car count and getting service out on the road as the transition to full battery electric continues. So, sort of big picture wise, the rapid transit and bus parts of the T are doing well in this CIP, especially light rail. Outside of the vehicle procurements, there's also a huge investment in the CIP in regional rail, which I think all of us support, trying to make the regional rail network, especially within 128, closer to a rapid transit system. And so there's a lot of money for that. But rapid transit does relatively well. It certainly carries a lot of people every day. It is the backbone of the system, despite what our commuter rail friends might say. So I'm overall happy with the level of investment that the CIP puts towards light rail, heavy rail, and bus. Obviously, you'd like to see more. I think there is also a lot of room in the program for mass transportation for the advisory board to talk about its desire to see additional service, specifically a growth in bus fleet size and additional bus routes and growth in rail. But those are two different things. And just for context, in case folks aren't aware, the program for mass transportation is a 25-year horizon document. The last one was completed in 2019, and they're supposed to be done every 5 years. We were told that the next one would be done in December of 2025. That obviously didn't happen. The sort of responsibility for the program for mass transportation has been switched from MassDOT to the MBTA itself, which I think is a positive thing. And so they're running both the PMT 25-year horizon and the CIP 5-year horizon planning processes simultaneously. The CIP that we're looking at today will be done long before the program for mass transportation is, but they do talk to each other and feed into each other. Technically speaking, nothing is meant to be programmed in a capital investment program, a CIP, unless it's first in a program for mass transportation. Although that sort of rule hasn't been followed in a very long time. It's not a bad rule. It's just something that since the PMTs haven't been done particularly well, I would argue it's a difficult rule to sort of adhere to. Bottom line is that the T is planning for a better future for passengers, for customers, for riders, for cities, and for towns. And I think we should be encouraging of them to continue these efforts. There are lots of improvements that I know all of us would like to see. I'm personally excited, as I mentioned, about the accessibility upgrades on the Green Line. In my not day job, I just went through the C branch accessibility process in the town of Brookline, where I chair our transportation board. It's very exciting having the opportunity to get all of the Green Line, at least all of these branches, accessible. D is already mostly accessible, so when sort of E and B are done following C, the entire Green Line, with the exception of Boylston Station, will be 100% accessible, which is a huge milestone. And coming back recently, having been on vacation in Europe and having traveled on public transportation systems there, I can tell you that while many of those places do public transportation very well, they certainly don't do accessibility well on their systems. getting the oldest system in the United States 100% accessible, specifically the Green Line, is a huge accomplishment, and it's certainly something that I think we should be supportive of. So in terms of what we as staff are sort of looking for from this committee is feedback from you folks as to sort of the direction that this CIP is going in. If there's other particular projects that are important to your communities that you would like to see that are not reflected, you can certainly let us know. All of your comments will be fed up to the capital Budget Oversight Committee, which is drafting on behalf of the advisory board its response to the MBTA's proposals. And we're asking each of the kind of modal committees to individually look at their sections of the CIP, like I just went through with you folks, specifically to comment, not necessarily on specific sort of projects or programs in the CIP, more big picture directionally. Is it sort of headed in the right way? Is it good for your community? Is it not good for your community? If so, why or why not? And what can the advisory board? What would you suggest that the advisory board's position on certain sort of programmatic themes be, and also particular projects? So personally, I think it's a good CIP. Last year, I was quoted saying there was a nuts and bolts CIP. I think this one's a little more expansive than purely focused on sort of state of good repair. That there are vehicle and infrastructure improvements marbled throughout this CIP, which bode well for the future of transportation in this region. I do think their approach to bus is a little myopic, but you folks have heard me talk about this before. I think they can do a lot more with bus, especially in the communities sort of surrounding Boston. But they're focused right now on the city and the inner core, and I understand why. I think we can do both, but that's just me. And so with that, Matt and Mayor Jen, I'll turn it back to you and ask, facilitate a discussion as best you can. And Matt, maybe if I can put you on the spot a little bit, you could talk about what the city's thinking is on the E branch and the B branch accessibility improvements, and maybe on Mattapan as well, to the extent you can. Thank you.
Sure. And Brian, thank you for that really thorough review and analysis of the CIP. That's very, very, very helpful. And, certainly I think strikes the chord that I was also thinking is, it's a very good CIP. It's a very good sort of basket of programs and recommendations. And, I think we can sort of tinker around with some of the details, but overall, it feels like it's sort of programmatically, practically heading in the right direction. I can maybe just talk real quick about the E branch and B branch work. So I think as many of you know, the city has been coordinating with the T around this for going back about 3 years. So we've been coordinating closely with the T around the E branch in particular and the design for that. The B branch has a longer history, and it's been more of a start and stop type of history, going back to really the early 2010s, when there was a need identified to reconstruct large portions of Commonwealth Avenue, and those were segmented out in two different phases. So you had phase one, phase two, phase three, phase four, and phase five, sort of going from Kenmore Square all the way out west towards the city line with Newton. And so over the years, different parts of that have been reconstructed. I'll say most recently, it wasn't that recent anymore, 2018, 2019, phase two, which is the area by BU around the BU Bridge, was reconstructed. And then that also sort of triggered some accessibility upgrades and station improvements on the Green Line right of way. Right now, we are, I'd say, in the early stages of working with the T around a redesign for Com Ave between Packart's Corner, which is where Com Ave, Brighton Ave come together. It's just west of the Agganis Arena, if you can sort of picture that general location, sort of going all the way west to the city line, at Boston College and with Newton. So it's going to be a humongous there's going to be some movement of the track itself. So right now the track between Packard's Corner and name's now escaping me, but I think it's Kenworth Street or Kenmare Street, begins with a K. Anyway, the track is not in the middle of the road. The track is actually sort of to the north of the road. Yeah, exactly. And what would happen during this reconstruction is the track would shift to the middle, and a number of the stations would be upgraded. Some of the curves would be smoothed out a little bit. And so that's really the direction that we're heading in with the T right now. So it's going to be a humongous undertaking that will completely transform that section of Comm Ave and Alston and Brighton. So it's been collaborative, it's been productive, and the T's been very, very engaged with us going back for the last 3 years on these and sort of the whole sort of green line process as it's been emerging. So that's the summary. Happy to answer any questions on it that folks have, or oh, and also I should mention we've been working with the T on Cleveland Circle as well. So sort of at the end of the C branches, Brian was mentioning earlier, it sort of dips into Boston again for what, Brian, maybe 300 feet, 400 feet. It's like a very short stretch of the green line that's still in Boston at Cleveland Circle, and so we've been working with the T around that section as well.
Matt, can you talk a little bit about the E branch at all?
Yeah, so the E branch has a design that's a little bit further along. It is up to 30%, if memory serves me correctly. I could get some of the details from my colleague Matthew Peterson, who's been covering that sort of in more detail. But in general, that would look at rebuilding the E branch from Brigham Circle, which is where the E branch currently comes out of the Central Reservation, all the way out to its terminal at Heath Street, and consolidating a number of the stops along there. So instead of there being, I think it's like 6 stops today, we'd be looking more at 3 stops in sort of that same segment. And the stops would, of course, be accessible. The stops would have, much more visible appearance on the street. So, they're not just these little, frankly, just bus stop signs on the side of the road like they are today. And the one trade-off with this is that we would, in all likelihood, be losing a lane of traffic in either direction. So the Green Line would have its own right of way going all the way south to Heath Street. You would have a sort of a much more predictable, reliable connection, but that vehicular connection to the Longwood Medical area would not be quite where it is today. We would also be designing this so the buses, the 39 bus, the 66 bus, could mix into that Green Line reservation. So the stations are actually going to be quite long, as you can probably imagine. Having a Green Line station and a bus station don't always mix together from a height perspective. And so even if the stations are going to be sort of literally the same, they will be long, but they'll be at slightly different heights to accommodate those 2 different vehicle types. I don't have a timeline off the top of my head, but I can certainly follow back up with folks and get a better timeline.
Cool.
All right. Happy to take other questions either about the Green Line work or about work that might be happening with the CIP in general. And if there's any folks that need to drop off early, I'm happy to sort of take those questions first or comments first. Sure, Dr. Monty.
Thanks, Matt. And this might be more for a Brian question, but either of you can answer it. Kind of looking for some insight. They do a CIP every year. That CIP is for multiple years, right? The CIP, which I agree is great, much better than I think previous ones, for all the reasons we've discussed. But it's the biggest question, like if it's a multiple year CIP and it's so drastic from the previous year CIP, is it real? Like, is it something where, and we also had a discussion about, reduction of state funding, a likely reduction of federal funding going forward. And so this is a plan. It's not necessarily a commitment of funds. And so I sort of get a little nervous that obviously the funding piece, but also when you take these drastic swings, I think this is not overly drastic, but it's significant from last year's CIP. It makes you wonder, like, well, what happens next year, the year after, 5 years out? Is this a real
Right.
plan that's going to happen, or is it just a kind of a wish list, and that might change next year as needs and finances adjust?
So the money question is a real one, Jay. As we all know, the federal government is largely walking away in many respects from its traditional funding of public transportation in large northeastern cities for various reasons that we can all guess. Um, with that said, this program does sort of believe that there will be another federal authorization. I think there will be another federal authorization. Congress people love nothing more than bringing home the proverbial bacon, even folks that want to eliminate government altogether. So I think there will be a federal authorization. I mean, the T is always the single biggest revenue source of any CIP. So it will borrow $600 million against the operating budget every year in perpetuity, and that will allow it to leverage $3 or $4 billion in bond funds to invest. That'll be paid back by the operating budget for the next 30 years. So, yes, I think to answer your question, they can afford this CIP if we accept the fact that there will be debt pressures on the operating budget forever. And that seems to be a decision that we in Massachusetts are comfortable making. With respect to sort of the potential changing of the guard or whatever, I mean, yeah, that's always a potential. The vehicle procurements have such long lead times that starting the processes now will sort of lock the authority into paying for them for the next 10 years. So I'm not too worried about the vehicle pieces moving off or falling off. There are other areas, however, where there are concerns. And this is where I mentioned the PMT, the Program for Mass Transportation, becomes so important. That is meant to kind of lock in a 5 to 25-year vision, which is obviously weighted more heavily towards the stuff in the first decade. That is a guide for the future of CIPs. And, that's why if you sort of read my stuff that I've said or written over the last several years, I think I'm the only one talking about the need to do a PMT because it is so important to set that vision and help lock in at least a direction of travel. And without it, I get very concerned that we risk sort of like ping-ponging back and forth between ideological investments over the years. So I think I think what they have in here is affordable. They make a big point about talking about going after discretionary federal funds, and I respect that. I think they've done a very good job of getting those funds and will continue to. And the other thing that I think it's worth noting to be a little bit optimistic is, and I'm actually writing about this right now, if the Congress flips in November, Massachusetts will have leadership at the very highest levels, at least in the House. We'll have the number 2 person in the House, we'll have the chair of rules, and we'll have the chair of ways and means. And the last time Massachusetts folks were in those leadership positions, lots of money flowed to this Commonwealth, including during a Republican presidency. So maybe I'm being a little overly optimistic, Jay, but I do think that there is hope here.
No, that's good to hear. I appreciate that. I mean, is it safe to say that if you look at, like, say, last year's CIP, everything that's in that last year's CIP is still ongoing and mostly committed to, and that this year's is additive to that, or has anything come off? Like, the CIP to me is a document that is a living document, right? It evolves, but it's one document that moves through time and changes year to year. So,
Yep.
So everything that is new on this CIP was done not at the expense of anything that was on last year's CIP.
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
the money that was freed up is from projects that fell off. The biggest ones that sort of fell off, and by fall off I mean were completed, are
Right.
GLX and South Coast Rail.
Okay.
And so those sort of move to closeout or punch list, which are significantly less expensive. And then the dollars that would have gone to those are then available for other projects. And so that's where the new stuff comes in.
Got it. Okay. Great.
And Brian, I would just add at yesterday's MPO meeting, when the T gave their presentation, which is the same presentation that basically has been presented, it'll probably be the same one that gets presented to the full advisory board at the end of the month. It again, like the emphasis on the state funding sort of disappearing in one of the charts that they showed. That was a point that I actually yesterday emphasized. This is why we need to continue to advocate for that transportation funding at the state level to your reps, to your senators at that local level, and to keep that sort of relationship and connection going, especially as our municipalities are trying to work on transportation projects and sort of move things into the future. But I know that piece really came out of like the MPO meeting yesterday, like seeing that chart of that state funding sort of dwindling after 3 years.
Well, yeah, just to follow up on that, there's a bond bill hearing later today that talks about
I think in a half hour.
future funding. So I mean, I think the slide that T showed yesterday was a little disingenuous because there's always a risk of state funding falling off if the legislature doesn't pass another bond bill, but they always do because, like, just like our friends in Congress, there's nothing reps and senators like more than bringing home the proverbial bacon to their constituents. So I think we'll be okay on that. I do worry, to your point though, Hannah, that the precipitous fall off of state funding is when they stop contributing towards the procurement of the red and orange line cars. That was a decision to fund that with state dollars was a decision that was made 15 years ago. And I do think it's important to your point that we work with our legislative folks on Beacon Hill to continue to have state investment in the MBTA. It's really critical that it continue.
Thanks for those comments, Brian, Hannah. Anyone else have questions that they want to ask about the CIP or about any of the other topics we sort of got into some detail on, whether it's the bus situation, questions about rapid transit and rapid transit funding? Steve.
Yeah. So according to what you said, Brian, if we keep bonding everything and trying to paying it back out of the operating budget every year, I mean that can't go on forever. At some point, you're going to be paying back all interest and no principal, and then what do you do then? And it's, I mean, isn't that what's happening? Is they're paying back more and more just interest and less principal, and the money keeps and it, you have to have money left over to operate the system. So there's got to be some point in time where you just can't do that anymore.
Well, until you've heard me say this many times, Steve. The T continues to be the only large public transportation system in the United States without a dedicated revenue source for its infrastructure needs. The only way that it pays for its infrastructure needs is borrowing against its operating budget revenue sources. Every year it borrows $600 million and it pays back roughly $600 million in principal and interest. You're correct in that at some point that those two lines on that graph of principal and interest will invert and you start paying more in interest than you do in principal. But what does logic and reason have to do with it, Steve? Yes, this has been the system we've had for the last 25 years since forward funding was put in place. It hasn't worked. It's not going to work. And there is a need for a dedicated revenue source for infrastructure in this Commonwealth. And until we get that, we're going to continue to be chasing our own tail in this way. With that said, it's what we got. And while it's not perfect, I think within the confines of the structures that we're surrounded in, this is a good CIP. And I think we need to fix the big picture overall sort of structural challenges, but within those confines, this is a good document, and I think it's good, especially for rapid transit and commuter rail.
Thanks, Steve, for the question. Brian, thank you for that detailed answer. Right. Any other questions, thoughts?
I guess if folks have individual questions or sort of would like to comment, they can just share directly with Hannah or me or Isabella. We'll try to get those answered or included. And if there are specific issues for your community in terms of infrastructure that you would like to see in the documents or sort of make sure that they're in there, you can also let us know and we'll be happy to sort of run that down for you.
Yeah, it sounds great. And Brian, is there a timeline for either you sending comments or for municipalities when they should send comments?
Preferably by the end of this month would be ideal for us, but we'll take them up until sort of mid-May. But strong preference for April 30th.
Great. All right, perfect. Well, let's move on to the next section on the agenda then. We have old business and new business. I don't think we have anything else to bring up unless folks want to flag it. All right. And then upcoming meetings, I think we're still a little bit TBD on the next meeting. I will say I will likely be out the first week of May if we are looking to have this meeting scheduled, but obviously Mayor Jen or others could share this if I'm away. So we'll follow up, Brian, with any thought, or Hannah with any.
Yeah, that works. As of now, I think it was slated for May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, at 10 a.m. I know our CIP committee also is meeting that date. So TBD in terms of like the timing. I think we were trying to shift the CIP to like the afternoon so that we could keep ours.
Okay.
If this committee feels that they want to skip a month, like if you or Mayor Jen or others, I know it's also a really busy time of year with everything going on. We can certainly do that and skip if you feel like knowing that you're out of town, or you can sort of maybe poll the audience and see, because I know there's a lot of different kind of committee meetings going on around that time of year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Frank,
Frank,
go ahead.
and you have a conference, Frank, correct? MassDOT?
Yeah, it's the MassDOT Innovation Conference that
Okay.
day. So it may conflict for many of the members.
That's a good point. So I know with like Focus 50 sort of bubbling up, with the CIP bubbling up, my thought is we should still meet, but maybe we push it off by a week or so
Yeah.
and aim for either like the 12th or sometime later that week.
That typically would work. Again, like so timing wise, we might need to shift the time from 10 a.m. Because I have the CIP committee set up, but we can figure out like the timing if 10 a.m. is amendable to shift around to a different time. Are folks typically able to meet in the afternoon for an hour, just out of curiosity, or does that make it difficult? I know John's shaking his
No,
head.
it makes it difficult only because Tuesdays are our board meeting nights, and I usually spend the whole day just getting ready for our planning and
Okay.
zoning board meetings. But don't hold it up for me.
If we push to maybe the 13th or the 14th, John, for
Much
Monday.
better.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the 14th is a MPO meeting
I
or,
don't, in May, I don't
yeah,
think so. I have it listed as the 7th as of now.
yeah. So maybe if we
Uh,
do 10 a.m. on the
so
14th?
yeah, if that works, because I think the MBTA board doesn't meet till May 28th, Frank.
Right.
Yeah, but on the 13th, the MassDOT Capital Programs Committee meets. So the
The
14th would
14th,
probably be
would
better.
that work for you, Frank?
I think there's no the MPO meeting is on the 21st, not on
Correct.
the 14th. So the 14th would work better.
Okay. All
Great.
right. So if for the majority of members, if the 14th maybe at 10 a.m. would work, I can put that in as a hold for us. We'll circle back obviously with Mayor Jen, but Matt, as long as you're also able to. And then again, I know Matt sent me a topic and Mayor Jen had sent me a topic sort of around buses. But if anybody has anything specific that you would like the T folks to brief us on, we certainly can try to arrange that and you can reach out anytime.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
guys. Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?